Welcome to the Depth Dive. Today we're taking a look at the world of 3D modeling, visualization, and data capture. It's a pretty fascinating field, and we've got this great report from Cognitive Market Research. So we'll be diving into the numbers, trying to extract some key insights, and of course, identifying those exciting growth areas so you know what to watch out for as we head into 2025 and beyond.
Absolutely, and it goes way beyond just flashy visuals. We're really talking about a fundamental shift in how industries are using this technology. By 2025, the global market is expected to hit a pretty substantial 1,240 million US dollars.
Wow, that's a huge number. And it's not just a temporary spike either. The projection shows some pretty serious growth fueled by that demand for immersive experiences that we're seeing everywhere. By 2033, the market is forecast to hit 1776.95 million US dollars.
That's right, and that translates to a healthy CAGR, a compound annual growth rate of 4.60% between 2025 and 2033.
So we're looking at really consistent growth here.
Steady and consistent, absolutely.
We know that North America is currently the biggest player in this market, but we're going to be digging into some other regions to see where that growth is really accelerating and where some of the most interesting developments are happening. This is a truly global phenomenon. So let's dive right into those global market dynamics. We've talked about that 2025 market size of 1,240 million and that CAGR of 4.60%, but what are the main factors driving that growth for you?
Well, the report really emphasizes the increasing demand for immersive experiences. Think about it. How much more engaging is it to experience a product in a virtual environment or do safety training in VR? It's night and day compared to just looking at static images. That desire for a more realistic experience is really pushing the need for advanced 3D tools.
That makes a lot of sense. It's not just about seeing it anymore. It's about really feeling like you're there. What are some other major factors contributing to this market expansion?
Another key driver is the rise of digital twins and virtual simulations. This means that industries are increasingly turning to these virtual representations for everything from designing more efficient products to predicting equipment failures. For example, imagine an aircraft engine manufacturer creating a digital twin of an engine to simulate wear and tear under different conditions. This allows them to do proactive maintenance, avoid costly downtime, and all thanks to the power of 3D.
Oh, that's fascinating. So it's like a virtual copy with real-world implications. Businesses can essentially test and optimize in a digital sandbox before ever touching the physical object.
Exactly, and that offers huge advantages in efficiency, cost savings, and even driving innovation. It's not just about these big flashy trends either. The report also highlights expanding applications across industries as a fundamental driver. 3D isn't just limited to entertainment or design anymore. It's becoming essential in a really wide range of fields.
So we're seeing a pretty bright picture for growth, but are there any challenges or obstacles that this market is facing?
Yes, the report does mention a couple of key restraints. One is the high cost associated with some of the more advanced 3D technologies. Think about things like high-end scanning equipment and sophisticated software licenses. These can be a barrier for smaller companies. The other restraint is a lack of skilled professionals who really know how to use these tools and interpret the data. As with any specialized field, having those qualified experts is crucial for widespread adoption.
Makes sense. The best tech in the world is only as good as the people who know how to use it. So looking ahead, what are some of the major trends to watch out for in this market?
Two big ones stand out. First, technological advancements. We're seeing constant breakthroughs in hardware and software, making these 3D solutions more powerful, more accessible, and more user-friendly. And second is the growth in emerging economies. As these economies develop their digital infrastructure, they're increasingly embracing technologies like 3D modeling and visualization. That opens up huge new markets.
It's interesting to see how both technological advancements and market demand are pushing this field forward. Now let's get more specific and zoom in on that regional breakdown. We know North America is the largest market, but let's go a bit deeper.
Right, North America currently holds over 40% of the global revenue for 3D modeling, visualization, and data capture. In 2025, the market size is projected to reach 458.80 million US dollars, with a CAGR of 3.1% from 2025 to 2033. So it's the biggest player, but its growth rate is a bit more moderate compared to some other regions.
That's still a dominant position, over 40%. Who are the key players within North America?
No surprise here, the United States is the powerhouse of the region. Their market size in 2025 is estimated at 361.99 million US dollars, and they have a projected CAGR of 2.9%. The report calls the U.S. a hub for technological innovation, which makes sense considering the concentration of tech companies there.
Right, and what about Canada and Mexico?
Canada has a good share of the market too. estimated at 55.06 million in 2025, with a CGR of 3.9%. And Mexico, while smaller, is also showing good growth. Their market size in 2025 is estimated at 41.75 million, with a CAGR of 3.6%.
So solid contributions from all three North American countries. What are the specific factors behind North America's dominance in this market?
The report points to the expansion of the oil and gas industry in both the US and Canada. These industries are increasingly using 3D and even 4D visualization. 4D adds the element of time so you can visualize changes in processes. It's all about improving plant performance and customer service. The US also has a high number of startup suppliers, which creates a competitive and innovative environment.
That's interesting how a traditional sector like oil and gas is embracing such cutting-edge technology. Okay, let's shift gears and head over to Europe. What's the outlook like there?
Europe is a major player, accounting for over 30% of global revenue. Their market size in 2025 is projected to be 359.60 million US dollars, with a CAGR of 3.7% until 2033.
So still a very significant market. Can you break down some of the key players and their growth trajectories for us?
Sure. The UK is a big one, with a 2025 market size of 60.41 million US dollars and a CAGR of 4.5%. Germany is right up there too, with 71.2 million and a CAGR of 3.9%. Then you have Russia with 55.74 million, though they have a more modest CAGR of 2.7%. And then France, Italy, and Spain are all contributing as well. France is at 33.08 million with 2.9% CAGR, Italy at 30.93 million with a CAGR of 3.1%, and Spain at 29.49 million with a CAGR of 2.8%. We also see some smaller but noteworthy markets like Sweden, Denmark, Switzerland, and even Luxembourg.
It seems like there's a really strong foundation in those growth rates across Europe. What are the primary factors fueling this market there?
Well, Europe has a really strong foundation in research and development, which leads to those constant advancements in 3D technologies. They've also got a lot of government support for digitization through things like Industry 4.0, the development of digital twins for urban planning and infrastructure, and all those smart city projects. And just like in North America, the demand for AR and VR experiences is a huge factor.
So it seems like a mix of technological prowess and proactive government policies are really driving growth in both of these regions. Now let's turn our attention to the Asia Pacific, or APAC. This is the region with the fastest projected growth.
Yes, APAC is really taking off. Right now, they hold around 23% of global revenue with a 2025 market size of 297.60 million US dollars. But their projected CAGR from 2025 to 2033 is an impressive 7.3%, making it the fastest growing region by a long shot.
Wow, 7.3%. That's a huge jump. Which countries are leading this charge in APAC?
China is the dominant force in APAC, with a 2025 market size of 124.99 million and a CAGR of 6.8%. Japan comes in second with 41.07 million and a CAGR of 5.8%. And South Korea's market is 35.71 million with a CGR of 6.4%. But one country that's really standing out is India. They have the highest growth rate among the countries mentioned with a CGR of 9.2% and a 2025 market size of 29.76 million. We also see solid growth from Australia, Taiwan, Singapore, Southeast Asia as a whole, and the rest of the APAC region.
9.2% for India. That's incredible. What's driving this explosion of growth across Asia Pacific?
There are several factors at play here. The report mentions the rapid adoption of 3D technologies across the region and, of course, that huge demand for immersive experience we talked about earlier. Plus, rapid infrastructure development and urbanization in many APAC countries are creating a need for 3D modeling and visualization for planning and construction, and government support for digital transformation is playing a big role too.
It sounds like APAC is not just keeping up, but really shaping the future of this market. Now let's move on to South America. What's their contribution and growth outlook?
South America accounts for over 5% of the global revenue with a 2025 market size of 47.12 million US dollars. Their projected CAGR is 5.3%, so smaller than APAC, but still pretty strong.
Still some healthy growth there. Which countries are the leaders in South America?
Brazil has the largest market share with 20.17 million in 2025 and a CGR of 5.9%. Argentina is next with 7.92 million and a slightly higher CGR of 6.2%. Then you've got Colombia, Peru, and Chile, all making solid contributions. The rest of South America combined makes up the remaining market share.
What are the key factors driving the 3D market in South America?
One major factor is the modernization of the architecture, engineering, and construction, or AEC sector. They're using 3D modeling for more efficient design visualization and conflict resolution in their projects. We're also seeing growing demand for 3D in the entertainment industry for animation and visual effects. And of course, healthcare is using 3D more and more for things like surgical planning and medical device design.
So it's a mix of established industries adopting new technology and new applications emerging. Now let's turn to the Middle East. What's their place in the global market?
The Middle East is a smaller player right now. They currently have about 2% of the global revenue, with a market size of 27.28 million US dollars in 2025. Their projected CAGR is 5.9%, which is on par with South America.
Smaller footprint, but still a lot of potential for growth. Which countries should we be paying attention to in the Middle East?
Saudi Arabia has the largest market in the region at 17.46 million in 2025, with a DLER of 6.2%. The UAE is close behind with 10.22 million, and it's a yield of 6.4%. Then we have Qatar and Turkey, both with similar market sizes but slightly different CAGRs. Egypt is another key player, and the rest of the Middle East contributes to the remaining market share.
What's driving the adoption of 3D technologies in the Middle East?
It's mainly those massive infrastructure projects that are happening in the region, things like developing advanced transit systems and smart cities. 3D modeling and visualization are essential tools for planning, designing, and building these complex projects. The oil and gas sector in the Middle East is also a big user of 3D tech.
That makes sense, especially with their ambitious development agendas. Finally, let's wrap up with Africa. What's their current market share and what are their prospects for growth?
Africa's market is currently pretty small. It holds around 1% of global revenue with a 2025 market size of 27.28 million US dollars. Their CGR is projected at 5.9%, which matches the Middle East. So they're starting from a smaller base, but there's a lot of potential there.
So modest beginnings, but definitely some promising growth on the horizon. Who are the major players in Africa?
South Africa is the leader with a market size of 9.60 million in 2025 and a CAGR of 5.8%. Nigeria is second with 2.18 million and a CAGR of 5.1%. The rest of Africa combined makes up the remaining market share.
Well, what's fueling the growth of 3D technologies in Africa?
Rapid urbanization is a big factor. As cities grow, they need 3D modeling for urban planning and infrastructure development. We're also seeing growth in the entertainment industries like animation and gaming, and technology is becoming more affordable and accessible, which is helping too. Interestingly, 3D data capture is also being used to preserve Africa's cultural heritage by creating digital models of historical sites and artifacts.
That's a really cool application of this technology. Okay, so we've got a good understanding of the global and regional landscapes. Now let's zoom in on those different segments within the market. The report breaks things down by 3D visualization application, 3D modeling solution, and 3D data capturing application. Let's start with 3D visualization.
Sure. When it comes to 3D visualization applications, the report predicts that AR and VR will be the dominant force. That's because we're seeing them used in so many different sectors, from gaming and entertainment to education and training. This means that the demand for creating engaging 3D content and developing platforms to deliver those AR and VR experiences is only going to increase.
It really feels like AR and VR are moving beyond just being a novelty and becoming genuinely useful tools. What's the fastest growing segment within 3D visualization?
The report highlights safety and training as the fastest growing area. This is closely linked to that increase in 3D data capture that we're seeing with things like drones and laser scanners. As industries gather more detailed 3D data of their facilities and operations, they need to develop more sophisticated training programs.
So the more detailed our digital view of the world becomes, the more important it is to be able to train people effectively within that virtual space.
That makes a lot of sense. Are there any other significant application areas within 3D visualization worth noting? Yes, there are quite a few. 3D is being used in marketing and sales to create those engaging product demos and visualizations. The film and TV industry relies heavily on it for post-production and special effects. And then there's product and process visualization, which helps companies optimize their designs and understand complex workflows. Specifically within the oil and gas industry, we're seeing 3D visualization used for things like drilling well installation, cementation, extraction, refining, and even transportation.
Wow, so the impact of 3D visualization is really far-reaching. Now let's shift to 3D modeling solutions. The report focuses on 3D CAD and 3D BIM. Can you explain those a bit more?
Of course, in 3D modeling solutions, 3D CAD, or computer-aided design modeling, currently holds the largest share of the market. 3D CAD is like the basic toolkit for creating precise geometric representations of objects. It's essential for design and engineering work across many industries. And we're seeing continuous growth in this area fueled by that demand for immersive experiences, advancements in technology, and its increasing adoption in new fields.
CAD has been around for a long time, so it makes sense that it's still the dominant force. What about 3D BIM? We hear that term a lot, especially in construction and infrastructure.
You're right. 3D BIM, or Building Information Modeling, is growing very quickly. Think of it this way. CAD creates a digital model of a building's shape. BIM takes that model and adds a ton of intelligent data to it, like information about the materials, cost performance, and maintenance schedules of all the different parts. So BIM allows for much more integrated and efficient project management. It helps with collaboration, clash detection, and lifecycle management from the initial design all the way to demolition.
So BIM is like a CAD model with a brain. It holds so much more information and can be used throughout the entire life of a project. That's pretty cool. Now let's talk about 3D modeling applications. How are they being used in different industries?
When it comes to 3D modeling applications, structural designing is the biggest player. This is all about using engineering principles, math, and 3D modeling to analyze and design structural elements like beams, columns, and foundations. It's crucial for ensuring that buildings and other structures are safe and stable.
Definitely can't argue with the importance of that. What about the fastest growing area in 3D modeling applications?
The report says that equipment modeling is seeing a lot of growth. This is essential in industries like manufacturing, construction, and engineering. It involves creating detailed 3D models of all sorts of equipment, showing every component, the precise dimensions, and the materials used. For example, manufacturers can use these models to do virtual assembly simulations to find potential problems before they even start building anything.
That makes a lot of sense for optimizing complex machinery and processes. Any other notable applications highlighted in the report?
Yes, quite a few actually. We're seeing 3D modeling used for piping design in industrial facilities, civil and foundation modeling for infrastructure projects, designing HVAC systems, creating reports for cost estimation and material takeoffs, and designing all sorts of equipment for different industrial processes. There are even applications in developing and managing intelligent grids for utilities.
So basically, 3D modeling has become a key part of design and engineering in just about every sector you can think of. All right, last but not least, let's talk about 3D data capturing applications. What are the main technologies driving this area?
Right now, 3D laser scanning holds the largest share of the market for 3D data capturing. This technology is also called LiDAR, and it uses lasers to capture incredibly detailed 3D data of objects and environments. That data is then used to create very accurate 3D models, which are used for all sorts of things, from surveying and inspection to creating digital twins of existing infrastructure.
LiDAR has become pretty prominent in recent years. We see it used in self-driving cars and robotics. What's the fastest growing segment in 3D data capturing?
That would be 3D aerial scanning, which uses drones or aircraft with special sensors to capture 3D data from the air. It's particularly useful for mapping large areas like terrain infrastructure networks and even whole cities. It's a very efficient and cost-effective way to gather a lot of data.
Drones have really revolutionized data collection in a lot of fields. What are some other key applications for 3D data capturing?
Well, there are those handheld 3D scanners, which are great for capturing data on smaller objects or in areas that are hard to reach with bigger systems. And then there are sensors that can be built into different systems to constantly capture and generate 3D data for real-time monitoring and analysis.
So we've got a whole arsenal of tools for capturing the real world in 3D, each with its own strengths and weaknesses. Now, the report also gives us a glimpse into the competitive landscape of this market. What are the main takeaways there?
The report says that the market is becoming more and more dynamic because of increased competition, constant innovation, and those rapid advancements in technology. This is creating a lot of opportunities for new startups to come in with fresh ideas and business models.
It's always good to see new players shaking things up. Any examples of these startups or interesting things happening with the more established companies?
One example is HoloBuilder, a startup that's developed a platform for creating and sharing 3D models of construction sites. This helps with progress tracking and collaboration. Another one is Twindom, which creates those interactive 3D twins of real-world spaces for things like virtual tours.
Those sound like some very practical applications of 3D technology. How about the bigger players in the market? Any notable developments?
Yeah, the report mentions that in April of 2022, AVEV integrated its Graphical Explorer feature into their E3D design software. This makes it much faster to load and render those really big, complex 3D models, which is a huge help for industrial design.
Performance and efficiency are definitely key when you're dealing with massive 3D datasets. Any other examples?
Back in September 2021, I bought Aerial Solutions, partnered with VERM to provide 3D visualization software specifically for the oil and gas industry. They wanted to give people remote access to asset data and make collaboration easier. So we're seeing these partnerships emerge where companies combine their expertise to create industry-specific solutions.
It seems like everyone is contributing to this growing market. Well, this has been a really comprehensive look at the world of 3D modeling visualization and data capture. Let's recap some of those key insights for our listeners.
Absolutely. The main takeaway is that this market is experiencing some really strong growth globally, with the Asia-Pacific region leading the charge. The increasing demand for immersive experiences and the widespread adoption of digital twins are major driving forces behind this growth. And we're seeing new applications pop up all the time in a huge range of industries.
So, as we wrap up today's deep dive, here's a thought to leave you with. Considering how quickly AR and VR are advancing and how accessible 3D technologies are becoming, how do you think these tools will change the way we interact with both the physical and digital world in the years to come? What completely new industries or applications might we see that we haven't even thought of yet? This is truly a revolutionary field, and it's fascinating to think about where it will go next. Thanks for joining us on the deep dive.